and especially in our generation, even though on one hand there's a lot more nisyonis, we're more exposed to immorality. It's on our phone, it's in our face, and we're much more, if you may say, nisyonis are much greater. I remember my uncle once told me, somebody told me, when he was younger, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, somebody he had a challenge, and he's saying he had to do a lot of things in order to go execute his nisyonis. Today, it's not like you have to look for it, it comes to you. And unfortunately, the nisyonis are very, very great, very, very strong and challenging. But on the other hand, we're so much in the element, we're more inspired, we're more in touch with reality. There's so many people that talk about it. There's an organization called Vayimayim that sends us videos that talks about Shmir Sinayim. That's a normal thing that a guy can listen to shir that talks about Shmir Sinayim. When I was younger, nobody would talk about Shmir Sinayim. It wasn't on the radar, Bachal. There was somebody had Shmir Sinayim, you have a problem. But today, it's something, this topic which is talked about. Welcome back. And I just want to share with you an akuda about the Shovavim, the idea of Kedusha. And there's a lot to talk about. You can't figure this out in 15 minutes. And I have news to tell everybody. This is a lifetime struggle. As long as you're young and you're healthy, you're going to be challenged with it. And even when you get older, you're going to have the challenge. But you're never going to be able to wipe out the nisayin. The idea is to be able, how to deal with the challenge of Inyani Kedusha. I'm sure by now everybody knows what I'm talking about. And also to understand when does the Yetzer Hara creep into a person's mind, and when does it give a person allowance to go ahead and to actually execute an Avera. So we know that the Shovavim Akdoshim write that there's Moichin Gadlus and Moichin Katnus, which means in English, and to translate it in our perspective, Moichin Gadlus, when a person wakes up in a good mood after a long night's sleep, he's in a good mood, he's excited for the day, he's excited to go ahead and to come to Shachris, he's excited to put on tefillin, to daven. He said, today I'm going to give tzedakah, today I'm going to daven well, I'm going to learn well. And he wants to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in an element of excitement. He feels that connection, which means, like I said before, in a certain extent, in our generation, even though it's challenged, we have so much nisyonis, and it's mamish the end of the Mishnah, and sight is we're mamish holding, we're seeing the reality. But the Mishnah says, but in a certain extent, we're looking for depth, we're looking for a connection. And as people, even Moichin Gadlus means that a person says, I'm not just davening because the ritual act to go ahead and put on tefillin and to come to shuv. I'm feeling that connection. I feel that the vekus. I feel that connection. I want to give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I feel that connection. That's Moichin Gadlus. When a person feels that, generally speaking, when he feels good about himself, when he feels connected to the Bnei Shalom, there's no place on a general situation, unless he's going to Fort Lauderdale, some places, some streets over there, I can't say for Nar Kodesh, or in South Beach, some places, right? But if you are going in your day-to-day routine, you're not going to allow, there's no place for the Yetzer Hara to go ahead and come in. Because even if he does, you feel so connected, you don't allow that machshava to go execute it. Like the Stipler writes many times in these Geras, when a person has a bad thought, is not to indulge on the machshava. Allow it to pass. Don't start eating yourself up, chewing yourself, thinking about it again. Because the more you're going to do that, the more you bring back the machshava, and the more you do that, the more the Yetzer is going to creep into you, and Rahman Saminechim. So it's going to, Chas v'Shalom, you have a machshava, it's going to pass. That's when everything's going well. And everybody wishes life could be like that. But the reality speaking is, a lot of us don't have, and nobody has, always 24/7, he's always feeling connected. He always feels when he's davening, that connection to the Bnei Shalom, when he's putting in tefillin, when he's learning. Sometimes we feel Moichin Katnus, we feel like it's a bracha. We don't feel that connection. We don't feel putting on tefillin brings us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's so many times I can tell you, people tell me I can work on my Shmir Sinayim, I can work on this addiction, putting on straps of tefillin, I struggle with. What's pshat? Putting on tefillin is a struggle. What's pshat? Not going to that place, he understands. He's not supposed to. Gambling, alcohol, other nisyonis, kedushin yonim, we can relate, we can understand as nisayin. But not to put on tefillin, you can't put on tefillin. What's the nisayin? And a lot of people struggle today. What's the pshat? Pshat is because people are deep and they want to have that connection. They want to connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu. But they're feeling the Meichin Kaddish, they don't feel that connection. They don't feel when they're putting on the tefillin that connects them to the Baruch Hu. What is it? A strap in your hand, a strap in your head. How does that connect me? But the avodah, and this is really the avodah of a yid, is to really understand is that a person has to serve himself, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not when he feels that connection. There's a Mishnah Avos, Mishnah says as follows. Mishnah talks about in Perek Dalet, Mishnah Gimel, it says, Hu yomer, al tiyavod l'chol adam. You have to be careful not to embarrass any single person. Because the Mishnah says you never know, he might come have opportunity to hurt you, or you might come an opportunity, you might need to help him. It says the Mishnah, she'ein l'cha adam, she'ein l'ishra. There's nobody that doesn't have their moment of success. And that's why when somebody's arrogance, you try to tap him on his back, you say, listen, yeah, you're very successful this year, but everything is a circle. Just today you're successful, doesn't mean tomorrow you'll be successful. But the Svarim HaKadoshim, the Balei Musa, and the Balei Chochmah, they write, she'ein l'cha adam, she'ein l'ishra. Every single person has moments of inspiration. They have moments where they feel that connection to the Baruch Hu. They feel that moment, the geschmack of learning Torah and davening. But that avodah of a yid is to know you're never going to always be in that mode. Sometimes you're going to be in a bad mood. Something you're frustrated. Something you feel guilty. Sometimes you feel disconnected. But the avodah of a yid is even if you don't feel that emotional connection, that vekus, you still have to understand the way to be successful and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even when the matzah of a Meichin Kaddish, we don't feel that connection. It lies in every single yid to constantly serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And which means if you're ritual, if you're going to go ahead and constantly do it, there's a maral they said over by the Chanukah Sabayis, by the Kohen North Hand Beach. It's a famous maral that Ben Zoyma says, "In keves echad tasav b'boker, that's a keves Hashem tasav b'naboyim." That's that klal dodol b'Torah. By bringing the carbon tabid in the morning and carbon tabid in the afternoon, that's the klal dodol b'Torah. So the maral, they say over. Maral says his word. He says that the idea of a yid is consistency. It's every single day to daven, every single day to put on tefillin, every single day, whatever your kfiyas Torah is, to go ahead and to learn. Even pshat, what's the chiddush of the maral? Poshet, it's all poshet. You have tayag mitzvahs. The pshat is the maral is teaching us this element that a person has to remind himself that your avodah is that even if when you don't feel that connection, you have an avodah to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a sefer called the Sefer Yosher Rabbeinu Tam. In Shar Shishi, he writes, it's called Yemei Ahava and Yemei Sinah. It's days of love and days of hatred. That's not the days of love that love today is expressed in the world. Yemei Ahava, the Sefer Yosher Rabbeinu Tam explains exactly this nakuda. There's days of you feel that love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. You feel it. Hashem always loves you. But you feel it. You feel that excitement, the geschmack, the cheshik. And Chas Hashem is Yemei Sinah, the days of hatred. You feel disconnected. Things are not working out in your life. You're struggling. It's a very big nisayon. You have to understand, says the Sefer Yosher Ben Tam, so to understand, like last week was a cold, in the summer it's called a heat wave, right? In New York, sometimes in March, it could be like 100 degrees. It doesn't mean that's really the summer. There's a wave, there's a heat wave. It doesn't mean it's mamish the summer. Which means, says the Sefer Yosher Ben Tam, that a person has to go ahead and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu constantly. Sometimes it says the Sefer Yosher Ben Tam will be but you feel that connection. And sometimes you're not going to go ahead and feel that connection in Sinah. But avodah for the Yid is to go ahead and constantly go ahead and to do this. Now, what I'm telling you right now, I'm going to tell you another shtickle. It might sound a steer to what I'm saying now, but really it's not a steer. Which means that is the ultimate goal for a yid to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day. Every single day. But the Maisa, we're human beings. And we gave us Yitzharim, give us Torah Tavlim, but we have ups and downs. And a lot of the times, what brings us down is because one time we were nichshel naveiro. And when we were nichshel naveiro, our neshama is so holy, so pure, that even if we don't feel like that, but our intuition, in our subconscious, we feel that guilt. And we feel ourselves, I did this aveira, I still watch this in the middle of the night, nobody knows about it, I did this aveira. And how I could come to the Beis Medrash, I could go daven, I could go learn, I could go mischazik myself. And that brings us down. And when those thoughts come to a person, automatically triggers another thought. And obviously we know the Yitzhak. And I want to share with you a word from the Papa Rebbe, the Sefer Leichi Yosef, this week's Parasha, Moedik Deher. And it brings in a psukim, but it brings out a Moedik in the Kudah. Vayushav es Moshe es Aaron apart. Vayoyim aleim l'chu ivdu es Hashem lekeichem. V'mi v'mi holchem. Moshe and Aaron asked Paroi to go ahead and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Vayushav es Moshe es Aaron, as Rashi says, the shliach, that Paroi says, I'm going to allow you to serve Hashem, but I need a list, a countdown. I need to know mi v'mi holchem. Now you understand it's like what's going on over here? What's like, either you trust Moshe and Aaron that they're going to come back, or you're not going to trust them. What's pshat? Mi v'mi holchem. What's the pshat? Like, he needs to know every single person. He's like, what, a king of the whole of Mitzrayim. Either you trust Moshe and Aaron, the leaders are going to bring back. And Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't say the names. Vayoyim Moshe ben Reinu b'skenenu nelech. We're going to go with the older people, the younger ones. What exactly is the dialogue? And he says, Kichag Hashem lanu. It's Kichag Hashem lanu. So I'll show you, I have 4 minutes left. The Medrash Shovavim brings down in Yalkut Shmoni, Kichag Hashem lanu is referring to Chag HaSukkos. And he says it was talking about, another Medrash, Mi v'mi holchem corresponds to Pasuk, David HaMelech, Mi yale b'Hashem u'mi yokum im ken kotchay. The Paroi was tying to Moshe and Aaron, that will sum it up, that yes, you say you want to go ahead and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you want to take Klal Yisrael to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But mi v'mi holchem, who are really going to be able to be on the level, mi yale b'Hashem, who's able to actually be on the mountain, to be on the level, to be constantly going ahead and serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu constantly. Which means Paroi was pilu, like tying to Moshe and Aaron, like, oh, you want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu? No problem. I'll allow you to go take the Klal Yisrael. But really, from the whole Klal Yisrael, who's really going to be able to be on that level? And Moshe Rabbeinu is responding, Dereinu v'skenenu nelech. Pshat is Kichag Hashem lanu. We know the Yom Tov of Sukkot is a Chag of Simcha Me'ava. You do Tshuva Me'ava. You go in the Sukkah, you go to the Almidim. As we know, the Gemara Numa tells us when a person goes ahead and does Tshuva, what happens? His Averis Nas Chuyos, which means to transform his Averis into Schus and Mitzvahs. Pshat is Moshe Rabbeinu telling us that a Yid's perspective has to be, even if Rachmana litzlan he was nichshel, even Yichas V'Shalom when he was younger, he went ahead and he did an Aveira. That can be a reason to go ahead and feel he can be Yalav Hashem, Miyakum Mikon Kodshay, which means that a person has to remember that you can never allow the past, and Nichshel Naveira Rachmana litzlan, to overtake him, because that is the Pesach. That is the opening for the Yitzhar. The Yitzhar is always looking for different avenues to break a person. Because when a person is tzabroch, when he's a person broken, anything could happen. He can allow himself, and he has no shame, to do the worst Haver possible. The only thing that protects a person and prevents a person in our generation, when a person has a little pride, a little stolz, and he understands who he is, a certain dignity, as he may say, that gives allowance of a person to hold himself with a pride or a stolz, not to rachmon minechshel. So I was saying before, that it sounds like a steer. So I want to share with you another word over here. Not as a promotion for the mikvah, because I'm shtickle biased, and the more people for the mikvah help the mikvah's budget. But I want to share with you Shovavim, and I assure you that this mikvah especially is a very holy mikvah. A lot of people, Baruch Hashem, use the mikvah. But the idea of a mikvah, in this week's parasha, I saw a word from the Yismach right over here. It's more to get the hair over here in this week's parasha. It says over here, from the Kedushas Yom Tov, He says, "V'nachnu lo neda manavoid ad boinei shon." Apostle Moshe Rabbeinu says, we're not going to know what we need to take, who's going to come to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu till we get there. He says, Shama is Rosh Teva Shtifa Marika Adoch, which means that a person has the opportunity when he goes into the somebody's nichshel, or somebody that wants down, he's tzibrochen. As we said, a person's avoid is to constantly serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even if he feels he doesn't feel. But we know, Rabbi Chaim Vital writes, that the koyach of a mikvah is Leil bara Elikim. Leil bara Elikim, which means the Rosh Tevis of Tava mikvah from the Shlach Kodesh. That means when a person goes into mikvah, he immerses himself in the water. By him coming outside, he's like a beri chalosh, like a new person. And that's the ideal why we see sometimes Baruch Hashem is manenu, by the Hasidim, by the literature, but the whole all Alakrais, everybody. The mikveh is very, very important. Why? Because we are faced with so much nisyonis that we never had before. And we have an obligation to not allow that if Chas V'Shalom we were nichshol to go ahead and to break us. But l'maisa, we're human beings and we get inspired by actions. So just by thinking about being mischazik is not enough. The way a person has an opportunity to mischazik himself, to inspire himself, to not allow his Chas V'Shalom, his nichshol naveiro to get his head and to break him and not to allow him to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Baruch Hashem gave us the koyach of a mikveh. The mikveh of ischach is to go inside and immerse yourself. It's like, whatever, it's not now, it's already 10 past 10 o'clock. But the Shlach Hashem explained how you could understand and relate by going into the mikveh gives us chiddush. So this is the message I want to talk about Shovavim. We're talking about Shovavim, the time when we spoke about Leil Yisrael, after Rav explained the Parsha Vayechi, that today we don't fast. It's not our avodah. Our avodah is to do tshuva and to learn more Torah and to connect and to do proactively positive. I say Torah to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I was thinking that one of the biggest things that Torah has a key to break us and to inspire us to do more of it. And when he breaks us, the avodah is a person has to remind himself to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'moich ha'kaddos and moich ha'katnos, regardless whether he's feeling it or not feeling it. And even if Chaz V'Shalom he has a nichshol, you have to understand, you have to go weiter, and you have the mikvah, the opportunity to go ahead and to go into mikvah. You're only going to give that a promotion for next week for the mikvah, no? Just go ahead.
Go ahead.